Today we're going to talk about the importance of protein in your diet and how it can help you with fat loss, with building muscle, and just feeling more satisfied. So, there are many different myths out there about how much protein you should consume in a day. What I'm going to talk about is, in our opinion, what we've seen over the last 15 years of training clients. We've Personally, I have tried almost every single diet that you can think of, and I went to the extreme of even taking blood labs during these diets and testing out different hormone levels. I would journal and reflect on like how I felt, my progress in the gym, my sleep, everything that I could kind of think of. And what we found was that for the majority of people, including myself, that higher protein diets worked really well, whether your goal was for fat loss, for building muscle fibers. Doesn't have to be huge muscles if that's not your goal, but it does also work if you're trying to look like The Rock or Arnold. Keep in mind, it's really hard to do, and I've been trying to do that myself for over a decade in the bodybuilding. So if you're worried about putting on bulky muscle, it's not as easy as you would think. So why am I talking about protein? Because it's a commonly asked question amongst lots of our clients. And initially, once our clients start tracking how much protein they're taking in, how much carbs, and how much fat, they realize that they've been really not focusing on the protein too much and more gravitating towards carbs and fat before starting a program with us. And when reflecting on the protein, that the protein numbers are really low. So lots of people, when they come to us, no matter what, their goal is, to optimize their posture, have more lean muscle, lower body fat percentages, typically on average. And when we increased the amount of protein our clients were taking, and didn't even change around the calories, I'm going to talk about calories here, but I don't like calorie counting, okay? So typically, if you talk to a professional, they might be talking about macronutrients. They won't necessarily talk about the calories. But what we do, and if you're wanting to know for yourself as well, is just start logging everything that you're putting into your body. You can use, we have our own app, but if another free app out there is MyFitnessPal. There's lots of different apps that you can track what you're eating. I would just eat however you normally eat for about a week. Then reflect on average how much protein you consume every day, how much carbs, how much fat, how many calories. From that average, let's just say the average calories that you consume is 3,000 calories a day. Let's just use a random number. And you notice that your protein intake is maybe 15% of your diet, and the carbs and fat make up the rest of your diet. By not even modifying the amount of calories, because most people will enter a calorie deficit to lose weight. And losing weight is different than losing fat. Almost anybody can lose weight rapidly. However, when you're losing weight, you're also losing muscle if not done properly. And even done properly, it's hard to lose body fat and retain muscle, or even maintain and grow muscle. So usually what people make a mistake is they're like, I want to lose some weight, I want to get leaner. They instantly start counting calories, and then they enter a calorie deficit. Before you even attempt a calorie deficit, and typically we don't really do that with our clients, we do it through movement, is once you figure out your metabolism, again, let's say it's 3,000 calories a day, then you notice, your protein intake is about 15% of your total daily calorie intake. Try playing around with that number. Bump it up a little bit. On average, what I've seen over the last decade with people is if their protein intake, and again, keep in mind, everybody's different. So experiment for yourself, journal, reflect. The more information you have, the better decisions you can make. So if the average person's protein intake is around 30 to 35% of their daily calorie intake, typically without even changing, let's say again, 3,000 calories you have over here, and you change the ratio from 15% to, let's say, all the way up to 35% is now your protein intake. Obviously the carb percentage and fat percentage is going to be modified, lower. Just from doing that and resistance training, we've noticed that many people start changing the body fat ratio. They start to put on a little bit more lean muscle mass. And when you have more lean muscle mass, naturally your body fat percentage changes. And if you ever noticed when you have a higher protein meal that you feel warmer, that's because it takes a lot of energy to kind of break apart the protein into essential amino acids and fuel your body. So just changing the amount of protein increasing the amount of protein, creates this environment where even your body temperature will be rising a little bit more throughout the day, because you're going to try to fit in a lot more protein throughout the day, and you're going to burn up more calories. And when you're resistance training, your body loves to consume protein to help repair the muscles that you damage, because as you're doing resistance training, you're tearing apart the muscle fibers, and when you're resting and recovering, they're replenishing and they're trying to grow stronger to survive the next workout. So again, lots of people are like, okay, well, I can't consume that much protein. I read that you can only consume 20 grams in a sitting. I would say, yes, based on peer-reviewed articles and studies out there that will say in an optimal window of time, more frequent, smaller protein meals would be better. However, we don't live in the perfect world. We're not retired. We don't have an abundance of time. We don't have a chef with us. Your body will utilize what it needs to utilize. So if you have a bigger portion of protein, let's say in the morning you wake up, you have, let's say, 40 grams of protein, 20 of it is not going to be just lost because that magic number that somebody put on the internet that says you can only consume 20 grams at a time. Your body's going to utilize what it needs to utilize basically at the end of every day. So let's say your goal for the day, again, we're going to pick a random number, is 150 grams of protein. As long as you get to that 150 grams of protein at the end of the day, it's far more beneficial to stay consistent every day on that versus trying to play it perfect and having 20 grams as soon as you wake up. A couple hours later, another 20 grams, a couple hours, another 20 grams, another 20 grams, and then you got a little bit busy, and then you only consumed maybe 110 grams in your totally daily input, and your goal again is 150. So I would say the best way is to just do what works for you. There's so many different easy ways to get in the protein. Obviously through real food works best. However, if you can't get it all through real food right then and there, experiment with protein shakes. I typically like a protein isolate. I'll have that after a workout. I'll even have it for breakfast because my protein intake is quite high for my personal goals. So there's little tricks throughout the day. Then again, some meals are easier to digest, such as I might have a protein shake in the morning, super easy to digest. Then I'll have some Greek yogurt and maybe some oats and some honey. So in the Greek yogurt, there's a decent amount of protein as well. You don't have to eat exactly what I'm eating. I'm just sharing examples of easier food items that you can quickly get into the body without feeling so full, because you will feel full when you're having higher protein. And typically, when you have the more aggressive, higher protein intake throughout the day, you won't have those sugar cravings as much. So you'll find that naturally, the carbs and fat that you normally consume in a day will decrease when you're increasing your protein, because you're going to feel satisfied for a lot longer. And when you're making your meals or ordering them, whatever you're doing, try to eat the protein first, because you might be full just from that versus, let's say you're having maybe rice and broccoli or a big salad and you eat all that first, and then you're pretty much almost already full and you haven't even got to the protein source. I'm not saying ignore the other things. I'm just saying if you're trying to increase your protein goals, try consuming the protein first, still have the other items, and then it will be a little bit easier throughout time. And when you find your new protein goals, again, let's say typically on average you used to be 70 grams of protein a day, and your new goal you find out is around 150 grams. Tomorrow you're probably not going to be able to hit 150. You're going to try, and if you don't succeed, it's okay. Think of baby steps. Every day, just try to do a little bit better, a little bit more protein, a little bit more protein. Over the coming weeks, you'll find that it's easier to be a little bit consistent. You're going to play around. You're going to be curious with the foods that you're putting in your body as you're learning what has protein in it. And you're going to find that, okay, now let's say week 1, 70 grams of protein, week 2, 80, week 3, you're at like 95, and you keep getting a little bit higher and higher and having these wins. And then eventually you're at your goal of 150 grams of protein a day. And again, keep in mind these numbers are all random, so don't just write down the numbers that I'm stating here. I'm just using it as random. So what other things are commonly asked for protein? So most of it's when is the most optimal time? Again, we kind of already mentioned this. There are optimal windows of time, you can argue, that are more beneficial to get the protein in. But again, when you're starting out, main thing, try to be consistent. So if you wake up, have a coffee, whatever you do, try to have a source of protein with it. And then throughout the day, as you're looking at different food options, think about, okay, I'm trying to have protein first. So if I'm ordering out or going to a restaurant, look at food items that have protein in it, a higher protein content. If you're not sure, again, you can use apps that are free, such as MyFitnessPal, like I mentioned before. And if it's a chain restaurant that you're ordering from, typically you can look up any menu item in there and it will tell you the protein, carbs, and fat breakdown. If it's a mom and pop restaurant, it might not have it. However, you can guesstimate. So if you're at a mom and pop restaurant and they have this big burger, 12 ounces, whatever it is, search 12-ounce burgers in, again, a free application and see what the average is for that based on what you're going to eat at this mom and pop shop. And then at least you have a rough guesstimate versus not knowing at all. If you have any other questions regarding protein, muscle building, fat loss, leave a comment below. Again, the average person that's coming to us is typically to improve posture, relieve past injuries that they've had, and typically lower body fat. And the trend, I'll recap, is to have a higher protein intake than what they were having before. Not many people I meet are having a high protein intake unless they were already an athlete and already aware of how protein can help them. Again, what I want you to do is test and measure like anything else in life. So once you find out your new protein goals that you would like to have and why, thinking about, okay, I'm going to start journaling and reflecting. So you're probably going to journal in an application, logging the food that you're intaking so that you hit your protein goals, your carb goals, your fat goals. You're also going to journal and reflect. It could be in a diary or notes in your phone, how you felt your workouts went every single day, how you felt your sleep went, everything that you can think of. Are you a little bit more energetic today? Are you feeling lethargic? How are your bowel movements? Test all that out. Test it for a couple of weeks and look at the data. Be like, is this serving me or not? And then with that data, you can manipulate. Okay, it's not working, let's try something else. If it's working, amazing. Keep going with it till it's not working anymore. And if you're ever not sure and you want to ask a professional, again, reach out to dietitians, naturopaths. You can reach out to lots of trainers, have their nutrition license as well. Basically, ask a professional if you're not sure, because there's so much information on the internet. And the thing is, everybody is a little bit different, so we have to find out what works for you. And even most professionals will give you a really good guideline of where to start, but based on your feedback, that's what they'll manipulate and make easier for you and your body and your goals. So if you like this content, make sure to subscribe, like this, share it with your family and friends. Make sure to ask us questions, and stay tuned to our next video.